Welcome back to another Design League playthrough, and this one is for tombanator, I think. And we're going to give this one a play. I think a newer designer, it's not a name I recognise. And yeah, let's see what we've got. We've got what looks to be a countryside theme. It's one of my favourites. And it's looking pretty dense and tree lined. Opens up a little bit over here. So yeah, let's leap in and see what we can find. I think this is the first hole. Okay, so the first thing that strikes me immediately from the playthrough is, well, we've got some floating bushes there that you're probably going to want to clean up. Quite a few of them. Now, I wonder whether you've lowered the planting, given how high they're all floating equidistance. So I'm going to guess that you've lowered the land and the bushes haven't quite followed. Alright, we have a few things to address, and I guess these are going to be pretty common across the board. In fact, I think I can see where you've lowered the land, probably around about here. Your planting is too close to your fairways, which really manifests itself as if I miss a fairway, I'm really just in trees and it's very difficult. It also hasn't really given your bunkers much space to breathe. Have a little think about when the last time you played a course was and you've got a tree right next to the bunker and then bushes alongside it, etc. Bunker sculpting, it will take you a little bit of time. They're a really steep learning curve. My number one tip here would be to try to define a high side and a low side so that you're not getting it just all dipping down into the middle. So with something like this one, I'd probably be lowering the inside, which might mean your fairway's tilting out a little down this way a little bit, raising up here as you've done, but you want to lower one part of it. And I think my final one is, like, strategically, I've got the same width as fairway with 105 iron as I do with driver, so I may as well hit driver. And miraculously, we've hit a perfect tempo. Still found heavy rough, but that's better than I was expecting. Green, I think we need to smooth some of these slopes out. You've put a pin on a very crowned slope, which is just, there's ways to add difficulty. This is a little artificial. I think just general sculpting and surfacing would be my first main go-to. You probably have, but worth checking out some of the tutorials, particularly the Andre ones are great for this sort of stuff. I'm just having a little look because we've got some sunken bushes here and here, and don't know, kind of gone a little half-hearted with the planting. I think we could do a little bit more with that. Well, making it out of that with par feels good. Okay, uphill par 3 I like. Again, I think sculpting is a little harsh. I like the path up to here through the rocks, but I do think this rock is blocking a lot of the view that you'd want. Green probably a bit small for the slopes that you've got on it. My tempo has never been better, and it needs to be. Greens could really use some flattening. Just I've hit it to 11 feet on a mid-length par 3, and the putt that I've been left with kind of feels a bit random because of where you've put the slopes. I think I'd be wanting to reward people for getting close a little bit more. Yeah, it's just not broken. Alright, hole 3. Yeah, same thing. I think the planting just, as you can see, it's really close to your playable surfaces, which is getting in the way a little bit. I like that we've got a split fairway, so a little bit of risk reward here. Downwind we can probably go for it. Green is better here, definitely better. I mean, if you've been watching my playthroughs, you know that this sort of tempo just does not happen. It's miraculous. And even then, I feel I've been a bit hard done by because of how it's been sculpted, or like maybe need a little bit more sculpting. Because having hit that small gap, I don't want to be feeling like I'm still in the fairway rather than kicked right and down to here. It's light rough, so it's not the end of the world, but I don't know. You'll know watching this whether you think this is playing how you'd wanted it to. Planting again, the fact that it's going into the light rough shows us that it's a little bit too close. And generally, give yourself about 10 yards or so between. What is with all these perfects? Give us about 10 yards between playable surfaces and planting, with a few exceptions of like waste bunkers and very densely planted courses, but that would be a decent rule of thumb for you. Bunkering around this green, it's more the same as what we pointed out on hole 1. I think identify your high side and your low side and go from there. Yeah, same with this one, just hazards. I mean, definitely don't want to be down there. But this feels like something that on a real golf course we'd probably be, I mean, maybe making less severe because people will break ankles down there. Or just filling in a bit more, I guess. Come on, another perfect? Yeah, it was too much to ask. Let's go find a bunker. Okay, so we're on a par 5. And the other thing I would suggest, probably not driver. It strikes me that all of the holes have been fairly straight lines, which I know this challenge kind of calls for that a little bit. I think generally breaking up the straight line from tee to green is a really good rule of thumb. Like whether that's putting bunkers in interesting positions so that you have to play close to them or play around them, or doglegging the hole, or I mean you did your split fairway, that was nice. The others have kind of been hit straight, which, I mean, it's a form of golf, it's just, particularly in a virtual environment, it's not the most fulfilling. Okay, drivable par 4. I would question whether that tree would be on the inside of the bunker. Let's give it a go. That's awful, but bunker's not too bad. That's left myself in a very bad position. I mean, I guess kind of point on green slopes feeling a bit random is typified by things like this bead. Like, because you've not really used flatten, I would say, around the greens, we've got some, like this bead's breaking massively, then it goes less, then it's flat, then it's going back the other way, then it's flat, then it's just all kind of doing a lot of things in a very small space of time, which is going to lead to that feeling of it just being a bit haphazard. Okay, final hole. And yeah, nice to see you using a dogleg here. Similar comments with planting. I think this is autogen stuff that you can just clear out. That does tend to happen. Like the ditch here is less pronounced. I like that as a good. It's a solid hazard. Works well. Yeah, about that. I think laying up on this at 395, laying up is a pretty viable option. Yeah, I think flattening fairways and greens would be a big one for me. And like you will see a lot of people preaching about the importance of undulations. They're really pretty tough to get right. Yeah, you can see the same here. Like you've got one bead going one way, and the other side of the pin it's going the other. which can happen, but I think smoothing things out would make life a lot easier. That said, we've somehow managed 2 under with probably my most spectacular tempo I've ever had. Look, I think I knew a designer, look, and please do take the feedback as intended. Like, we were all there once, certainly I was. Just go back to. I think for me, 2 things would be giving yourself space with your planting will make your life an awful lot easier in terms of just providing, I guess, holes with a bit more width, as well as if you miss the fairway, then you're not dead up against a tree, which can be quite punitive. Second one would be trying to add a bit more interest with how you thinking about if the golfer goes in a straight line from tee to where the pin is. How are you breaking up that dead straight line? How are you making that a bit more interesting? How are you making them work around it, or carry a hazard, or play to the left, or play to the right? Because once you start doing that, it gets a lot more interesting. Things like dog legs, as you start doing like towards the end, and you split a fairway, that can be a nice, interesting way of doing it. And I think the final one for me, like bunkers are a bit of a work in progress, but generally just flattening the holes and surfaces so they play a bit more as expected. Like if I think about seeing a ball bounce, is it kind of roughly going where I'd predict it would do? Golf doesn't have to be fair, but there should be an element of like you know what you're getting. So I hope this helps. Good luck in the contest, and yeah, catch you soon.